Well, good morning, everyone. Hope everybody is doing great here. Welcome to 2022 and the first Power Hour of the year. I saw some folks are in the comments and ready to get going. So let's take a look at some of the comments and see what everybody's working on. First off, hope everybody had a happy holiday, happy New Year here. Aaron Riley says, "Love these lo-fi jams." And by the way, I'm not sure what happened with my graphics this morning. My countdown timer got all weird, and I use it's a program called Ecamm, and I had to update it over the holidays, and I didn't realize that something had broken. So hopefully I'll have that fixed by the next show. Travis Stoll, happy to be here and ready to write. And Travis says, I am working on an upcoming presentation, still writing, and I'm drinking hot green tea. Very nice, very nice. Okay, let's see. Up Down Junkie, working on a short story today. Fantastic. And TextVet Jeb, about 15,000 words into the rework of my first novel. It's basically turning out to be a whole different story. Hey, sometimes that happens. All right. Good morning, Brixhaven. And Hunter Hendrick, I'm working on an encyclopedia for my series. That's very interesting. Sounds like you've got a big series or some concepts that might be might need to be spelled out for the readers. That's pretty cool that you're doing that. All right. A. Anderson. Hello, A. Anderson. And Christina Booth, happy Saturday, everyone. Yes, happy Saturday indeed. Fern is in the house. Hello, Fern. RSLK, welcome. Happy New Year. Hello, Lois. And if you're new, let me know. If you're new, I'm seeing some new names here. So I just want to give folks a shout out. All right, Haley D joining from the UK and working on a short story today. Seems like short stories are in the water, which is pretty cool. Seems like a lot of people are working on short stories. All right, Aaron Wiley, drinking some coffee and working a creepy pasta to be narrated. That is interesting. Interesting indeed. All right, and Tammy, working on a second round of revisions for my manuscript. Very good. All right. Yeah, everybody's got some really cool projects that they're working on. So I just finished a book this week, actually. I finished a book. It's called, I don't know the tentative title yet, but it's basically a book on author estate planning. So how to plan your author estate and what happens to your books when you die. And this is an idea that I got last year, but I really wasn't ready to write it yet. And I've been doing a lot of research. And so I finished the book this week. And my editor's supposed to have it back to me today or tomorrow. And then I'm getting it off to my proofreader. And my proofreader promised to get it back to me by the 17th. And then my cover designer should have it back by the 22nd. So I'm on track to finish this by the end of the year. But I'm going to be working on a Excel spreadsheet organizer that is going to come along with the book, just as a way for people to gather everything. So like one of the hardest things about this is getting all of your affairs in order. So our lives online are just so messy and so digital, and it's hard to corral everything. So like, what are all your bank account numbers? What are all of your social media accounts? What are all of your passwords? What are all of your usernames? If you use two-factor authentication for any of your sites, how do you access that if you're gone? Because if your phone gets disconnected, all these things. And then also, kind of the basic stuff about what are wills, what are trusts, what are some other things that an attorney can help you with, and what are some unique considerations that authors should be thinking about. And so this is actually going to be a 2-book series. The first book is going to be author estate plans, and then the second book is going to be a guidebook to heirs that's written in plain English. So the person who you leave your books to might be like a deer in headlights. And so how do you take their hand and guide them through the process of what do you do to, change the names on accounts and all that stuff. So I'm looking forward to that. And a number of you have told me that you're looking forward to that as well. All right. So we do have some new people here. And I want to mention that welcome. And we have one new person that said that they were new. Slouch, welcome, Slouch. Appreciate you being here. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to explain the rules, and then we're going to go and get our first session off here. So during power hours, these are generally the first Saturday of every month. The only time it's not the first Saturday of the month is when the first Saturday coincides with a holiday, like January, this particular month. And we've had some other months like September where we in July where we have some issues. So first Saturday of the month. If it's not that, I will generally let folks know that on my social media channels and on my YouTube community blog posts, and also on the blog on my website. So if you're not following any of those, please please go follow one of those. But first Saturday of the month at 10 a.m. Central Standard Time. What we do is we, as a community, come together and write together. So I put a timer on the screen, which I'll do here in a few seconds. And then the timer is 20 minutes and it will count down, and I'm going to go on mute, and we're all going to write and make progress toward our books. All right. When the counter comes off, I'll put another timer on for 5 minutes. We'll take a break, shoot the breeze a little bit. I'll answer any questions that you have, and then we'll jump into the second session. And we do this 3 times. And then once the final session is over, I stay on and answer any questions that any of you may have about writing. So as you all know, I will stay on until all of your questions are answered. All right. So with that, it is 10:06. So let's get into the first session. And got 20 minutes on the timer here. I'm going to go on mute, and all of my Power Hour veterans, somebody comes in and says, "What is he doing?" You know what to do. All right. So happy writing, everybody. And let's get some stuff done. All right, everybody, we'll start in just about 2 minutes. All right, everybody. Hope everybody had a productive session. So, because we got some first timers here, I got a timer up on the screen for 5 minutes. So, we're going to shoot the breeze for 5 minutes, maybe a little longer, depending on how many questions there are. And I want to know, put in the comments how many words you were able to write during this session. So, how productive were you? How many words did you write? And then we had some questions come in, so I'll start to answer those as you all are doing that here. All right, we got a new person, David McPherson. This is the first time I've been here in months. Glad to have the support on a snowy Saturday. Yes, it is very cold where I am too, and I agree. All right. We did have a few questions that came in. Arjuna Solis, do you have any tips for little payoffs at the end of a chapter? Yeah, that's a really good question. Basically, if I could rephrase your question a little bit, how do you put a cap on the end of a chapter, right? To where it's satisfying for the reader. That's my understanding of the question. I have a book. It's called the Writing Craft Playbook. I don't know if you've read it or not, but I actually have in this book, and it's free. You can get it at authorlevelup.com/fanclub. You just have to have your email address. But in that book, I talk about how to open chapters, and then also I have a section dedicated on how to end chapters as well. And it may be a bit too much to go into, but there are, if you look at mega best-selling authors, they end their chapters in very specific ways. And if you learn to recognize their patterns, then there are some really cool things you can do. So definitely check that book out if you're interested in anything I just said. All right. All right, Hunter, do you have any tips? Okay. Not sure if you guys are the same person or if you just were like your minds were synced together to ask that question. All right. Harsh, how can pantsers foreshadow events? That's a really good question. I think that here's how you do it. Basically, you write by the seat of your pants, and then usually what happens is you're in chapter 7 or 17. Let's say you're in chapter 17, and then you're like, oh, wait a minute, I just wrote something that I didn't foreshadow ahead of time. So then what you do is you jump back to chapter 7, you plant Chekhov's gun or you plant the seed or whatever it is to foreshadow, and then you jump back and continue the story. That's usually how it happens. It's not something that happens like, oh, I'm gonna plant this seed when I write this chapter, Sometimes that does happen. Like sometimes you're writing something and you're like, oh, I have a feeling this is going to pay off later, or I have a feeling that something's going to happen in relation to what I'm writing. later. But usually, it's a fly by the seat of your pants. You come to a situation that wasn't set up before, so then you jump back and you set it up in the most efficient way possible, and then you jump back. That's typically how pantsers do it. At least that's how I do it. I imagine that's how a lot of people do it. Okay. Okay. Starting to see some words come in here. Up, down, junkie, 305 words. Nice job. Deborah, 428. Amy, 271. TextVet Jeb, 163. All right. 153. I feel like I got controlled by something. In a good way or a bad way? I'm very curious on that. All right. Okay. 450 words. JD, 300. Everybody's doing great. This is good stuff. Okay, and Tammy says, I measure my revision progress by pages, not by words. I'm adding a new scene, so I didn't quite make it through a whole page. Hey, it's okay. Whatever way is productive for you. All right. I'm seeing a lot of numbers come in. So I see your numbers, but I can't put all of them up on the screen here. Pierre Andre Roy, when I am when always lost when it comes to describing my character's clothes. What's worth mentioning and what's worth not? Well, I would mention what is important to the story in some way. Clothing is one of those things where it's less important, I think, than people realize. I bet if you picked up like a best-selling writer's book, you could go through their entire book and you would be surprised how little clothing gets mentioned. And if it's mentioned, it's usually mentioned because there's something that happens in a scene or in the scene. So, like, for example, if you introduce a character who happens to be wearing, I don't know, like a pink shirt, right? And the fact that they're wearing a pink shirt is really not that important if you think about it. I mean, yeah, it helps the reader see that person, and that's important. But if if that's the only description you get, they're wearing a pink shirt, and then you go through the whole novel, and then that's it, then there's really nothing there. But if that character is wearing a pink shirt and they're running through the jungle and it happens to get snagged on a branch, well, then the fact that they're wearing a pink shirt is actually important because the reader needs to be able to see the shirt snagged up in the branch. See what I mean? So if you're going to describe your character's clothing, just make sure that it has some sort of sensory or importance that the reader is going to see either in that chapter or in the next chapter. Otherwise, you probably could get away with not describing them. I think there's other character attributes that you probably get a lot more mileage from, like someone's hair or their eyes or their facial expressions, those sorts of things. All right. So hopefully that was helpful. Hey, no problem. I understood your sentence. So sometimes when I read them out loud, I kind of bungle them here. All right. Let's see here. Okay. Well, everyone is doing great. So I'm not seeing any other questions come in. So why don't we jump into our second session? Remember, folks, if you've got a question, I'm always happy to answer it. Just make sure you put the word question in all caps in front of it. That will help me see it faster. All right. So what we're going to do now is I'm going to figure out how to get Pierre Andre's comment off the screen first, and then I'm gonna throw up a timer. So let's go on. I'm gonna go on mute and 20 minutes. So we'll come back in 20 minutes. And good luck, everyone, with this next session. All right, folks, we'll be back in about a minute. About a minute, we'll be back. All right, everybody. Hope everybody had a great writing session. Let me know in the comments. How'd you do? All right. So while you're doing that, I will answer the number of questions that came in here. The first one is for before I have interest in the author estate plan book that I just mentioned. If you are interested in it, in the comments, I just posted a link to a Google form where you can put your name and email address to get an advance review copy. So, like I said, it's going to be available here pretty soon, probably in the next 2 weeks. So if you would like to read the book first and get it before everyone in exchange for an honest review, feel free to use that link. Someone did ask if I would include, if I would let them know where to post links. The answer is yes. I use BookFunnel. So BookFunnel will deliver the book to you. And then once the book is available, you'll receive a follow-up email that lets you know where the book is published. I may publish the book before I send it to everybody. I may not. I'm not sure yet. So just be on the lookout for the emails and you'll get that info. All right. Questions that came in here. Pierre Andre, should someone consider everything an editor requests to be undeniably right, or can it still be arguable at some point? Well, first things first, Pierre Andre, nothing that your editor says it should be taken as a stone tablet commandment. I mean, everything they suggest is just that, a suggestion. Now, a lot of things that they suggest are probably right, especially when it comes to grammar or when it comes to spelling, those sorts of things. But even then, sometimes just because something is grammatically correct doesn't mean it's actually correct for your book. So that's why it comes down to hiring the right person. Now, that said, there are some editors, that this is not true of all editors by any means. Certainly none of the ones I've worked with, but there's some editors out there that can be jerks, man. I mean, they just can be. And, if their comments are making you feel bad, or, they're phrased in such a way that you're like, okay, this person's a jerk, then, you hired the wrong editor. And I would take anything that person says with a grain of salt. I mean, maybe the grammatical and spelling stuff is right, but if they're opining about your story and they're saying this doesn't work, that doesn't work, and they're ripping it up, that's really not the kind of person you want to be working with. So I don't know what your particular situation is, but my general rule of thumb is if you hire the right editor, that person is a partner. That person is somebody that has a vested interest. I mean, you've paid them. So, I mean, they're going to do the best they can to help you with the story. So, if you hire the right person and you can trust that person, the majority of what they suggest, I'm probably going to accept. There may be a few things where they might suggest something that, I don't agree with that. So I don't do it. All right. So, but if you find yourself disagreeing with everything the editor suggests, then you hired the wrong person. All right. Okay. Next question is from Wylan. As a pantser, what do you think if you introduce a character item, MacGuffin, or etc. that felt right at the time, but then you never find a place to bring it up again or utilize it? Yeah, Wylan, I think the answer on that is pretty easy. I would just go back and if it has no material impact to the story at all, or if there's just nothing that happens with it, then you can go back and just take it out. I've done that with a few novels where I've introduced a character, or I thought the story was going one way, but then it went another way, and then I've got this dangling plot thread, there. And then what you can usually do is go back and take out that thread, and it doesn't impact the story in any way. All right, but just make sure that if you do that, you understand the first, second, and third order impacts, because it may impact a reference in another chapter or something like that. So you always want to be a little bit careful of that. But if you're hiring an editor can help you catch any of those dangling threads, or any residue from those dangling threads as well. All right. Okay, Wyland had another question. Did you have any formal schooling or education on writing before you started this author's journey, or has it all been learned as a student of doing? Yeah, I was an English major in college. As far as that preparing me for a self-publishing journey, I don't know. I mean, I'm definitely grateful for my English professors, and they definitely gave me a space and a lot of encouragement to write. I started off writing poetry, and I got a lot of support from the English department at my college, and that was amazing. And I think, if anything, what that helped me do was it helped me develop discipline. Because my senior thesis, I had to actually write a poetry collection. So I actually had to write a book. So that was kind of cool, But at the end of the day, there were some things that were not, there were things that I did not learn in college. Had I learned, probably would have prepared me for this life a lot better. Namely, the business of being a writer and the marketing part of being a writer. I didn't get any of that instruction in college. The craft part, I really didn't get much instruction on craft other than how to analyze something and take it apart, which is not terribly helpful when you're actually writing. And in college, maybe some colleges are different. It's been a while since I've been in college, but I just don't think that self-publishing has caught up to academic yet. There are some colleges I see that they're trying to incorporate self-publishing and show students that that's a viable path, but I don't think that's true in most places. And until that's true, I'm just not convinced that an English degree would prepare someone for self-publishing. I'm not really convinced that an MFA would prepare someone for a degree in self-publishing. Everything that I've learned, in terms of this channel, in terms of doing videos, in terms of writing books, learning how to write books that connect with people, right? I didn't learn any of that in college. Now, did I get a lot of opportunities to read books and soak in culture? And I don't say soak in culture. That makes me sound like some highfalutin academic. I don't mean it that way. But get to know authors and get to chat with people and creatives and stuff. Yeah, that was awesome. I love that. But it's not necessary. It's not required. All right. Okay, let's see. Next question is from Travis. All of my speaking events ask for a bio and photo. Did you get your photos professionally taken? Do you ever adjust your bio for your audience? The answer, Travis, is yes. I did. I used to have professional photos taken every other year or so. I haven't done that since like 2017 because the photos I've got right now, I like them and they're working out and they still look like me. Unless I gain 100 pounds or start getting a bunch of gray hairs. I kind of like the photos I've got right now. But yeah, definitely I hired a photographer because it's a tax deductible expense. So that's kind of a good thing. Bios, what I usually do, and this is just what I do, I try not to adjust my bio for every audience. What I do is I usually have a generic bio. It's available on a press kit on my site, and I send that to the venue organizer. And it's usually a zip file, and it's got high res and low res copies of my author photos, as well as a bio. And what I do with the bio is I give them a 1-line bio. I give them like a 3-sentence bio, very short sentences, and then I give them a full bio. And then the venue can choose what they want to use. And I tell them, if you want to add, edit, delete stuff based on what you think would be appropriate for your audience, feel free to do so. All right. That's just easier for me to manage in the long run. All right. Let's take a look at people's comments here. I know there's a lot of questions, so I will make sure that we hit those questions, folks. You all know that I won't leave until I answer all the questions. All right. Let's see. All right, Fern. 600 words so far today. Fantastic. Amy, 300. Music, 413. TextVet Jeb, 346. Up Down Junkie, 391. Deborah, 473. Very good. All right. Let's see. David, 400 words. Lois, 246. What a great way to start the year. I agree. It's cold outside. I got, I forgot to tell you guys, I got this mug. You can't see the words, so I'm not even going to try to focus it. But I was on a podcast with Valley of Writers. If you've never checked them out, check them out. It's a blog, but they feature, it's not really a blog, but it's a website for writers. And they do interviews with authors. It's a really cool website, really cool vibe. And I was on a podcast, and the host, a Fungi, sent me a mug with my name on it, and it says Michael Laron, and it's got a trophy, and it says 2 million plus published words. I thought that was really cool. So I'm drinking hot chocolate from that mug. All right, I've digressed too long. All right, so why don't we do this? Why don't we get our final session on the clock? Then we'll come back, shoot the breeze. I'll answer any questions you all have. So keep the questions coming. I'll keep answering them, and we'll be back. Happy writing, everybody. All right, everybody, we got about 2 minutes left. 2 minutes left before we come back. All right, everybody. How cool. So we knocked out our first sessions here. I know some folks had to bounce. All right, but I'm glad you were able to join me. And let me know what your final word counts were for the day. And I'm going to start going through and knocking out some of these questions that are coming in. So there are quite a few questions and comments that were coming in. Okay. First question is from Blessed One, 1994. Do you still do consultations? The answer is no. I don't do them because I just don't have the time, and my time is best spent doing things like this. That said, I am doing a special round of consultations for anyone who buys my Beast Mode collection. So authorlevelup.com/beast mode. You guys know last year I wrote like 10 books. I don't remember how many. It's like 10 or 12 books in 90 days. All right, so I did that, and I've actually extended that, so it's gonna stay live until next weekend. So anyone who purchases that book will be put into a drawing for a 30-minute consultation with me. All right, but other than that, I don't do consultations right now, just because of my time. All right. Christina, how do you improve your writer's voice? I feel like my voice is very simplistic. I'm writing upper YA, but my voice seems very children's book. Well, maybe I would say, you're probably your worst judge on something like that. I would see what other people say. I mean, if people aren't saying anything about your voice in the reviews, your voice is probably not a problem. I would also say that your author voice isn't necessarily something that needs to be improved. Your author voice is what it is. It's just a matter of you learning what to do with it. There is a course on WMG, Dean Wesley Smith and Christine Catherine Rush. You can look them up. They have a course on author voice. Might be something that you would be interested in checking out. Not the cheapest course in the world, but might be helpful for your situation. Okay. A. Anderson, what do you do when your plot or characters are similar or the same as another story that you've never heard of or had read before? Yeah, this is something that causes panic attacks in authors all over the world. This happened to me actually when I was writing. I think it was one of my first series. I published the book, And then I found out shortly after I published it that someone had written a book that was very similar in tone and with characters and stuff. And I freaked out. But the reality is there's really nothing to freak out about. First things first, just to clear the field, it's a good thing that somebody else thought of that story because it means that there's probably a demand. And that also means that that could be a collaboration opportunity. You could reach out to that person, say, hey, let's co-market our books together. Boom, shakalaka, you can make some money, right? And this is actually what happened. So the book I wrote was about a teddy bear. It was about a teddy bear who wields a sword and shield. And it turned out that after I published this book, there was another author by the name of Justin Sloan that had published a book with a teddy bear who does kung fu. And we got together and we were kind of laughing about it. And we're like, hey, great minds think alike. Why don't we write a book together? And we wrote a series about it wasn't about teddy bears, but it's actually it was more of a thriller series about a necromancer, and that series did really well. So you can turn lemons into lemonade, so to speak. I would also not worry about it too much because a lot of people think of copyright infringement and things like that, but you're not committing copyright infringement unless you're stealing the other person's words word for word. But if you didn't know that that other person wrote the book, then you're not going to have the same story, and it's not probably going to follow the exact same plot. And I don't think you would be accused of any kind of copyright infringement. So in reality, it's just something that happens every day, and you can use it to your benefit, and you can also use it in your marketing. So I wouldn't worry about it. I know some people get worried about that, but it's not the end of the world. It's more problematic if you start stealing from other people. Then I would worry, but I don't think anyone watching this is going to do that. Okay, let's see here. Big Scott. When I write, I listen to Lionel Richie. Okay, I respect that. When I study the Bible, I listen to DC Talk. Editing is inherently destructive. I'm thinking maybe Metallica for that. What music helps your creativity? I don't disagree with your Metallica comment, actually. I think that heavy metal or something would actually be appropriate when you're tearing stuff apart. What do I listen to? I listen to jazz. Jazz and video game music, but primarily jazz. And the reason for that is that jazz is how I see the world. When I first became an artist, I was actually a musician, and I played the saxophone, I played the guitar, tuba, piano, melodica. I had a lot of instruments. I even played the accordion at one point, and that was how I saw the world. And I wanted to be a video game music composer. And I wanted to write jazz when I grew up. And then I got into college and realized that wasn't for me. But that's kind of how I learned to be an artist, to think about the world. Constant practice, constant discipline. And so that helps me. And when I listen to jazz helps me solve problems. And that's just, I just have a very romantic affiliation with jazz. But that works for me really well. I also like video game music because, I grew up playing video games a lot. And I really appreciate and admire how video games are able to impart moods on just virtually anything you can think of. There's a video game or a song on a video game soundtrack that can kind of help you with that mood. And that's always kind of helped me get in the zone. All right. That was a really good question. Next question. RZLK, and I hope I'm RZLK. You have to tell me how to pronounce your name because I know that I've never been saying it correctly. A tip. This was something that they want. This was just a comment. A tip I learned from a commenter who was here a while ago is to listen to music, the musical ambience of the scene location that I'm writing, so I can immerse myself in the setting. It's really helped me to write. Yeah, I remember that. That was a gold star comment. Someone they had mentioned. I think it was they were writing a historical. It was like a historical fiction. And they said that they were able to find like a YouTube video of like horses and stables and stuff. And so they were listening to that while they were writing a scene where the character was in a stable or something. I thought that was just such a great comment. That I agree. I remember that. That was agree. I'm glad you brought that up again because I bet that will be helpful to other people. Even though I completely screwed up how I described what the person said. All right, Luana. Sometimes in the middle of writing my novel, I actually get bored with my whole story and the characters. Is this normal, and how can I prevent this? Yeah, Luana, I would say if you're bored, that's a red flag. I would, if you're bored, then the reader's going to be bored. So I think someone else mentioned this in the comments. I would find out where you got bored, where that boredom started, nuke everything after that, and then move forward. Because it probably means that you went down a path that you thought was okay, but it ended up being a dead end. All right, that's what I would say. That would be my port of first call. If that's not viable, like if that doesn't work, then what I would do is I would write as quickly as possible past your current scene. Force yourself to write past that, because maybe it could be what you have there is good, but you're wanting to get to the next part. And then maybe it could be when you look back on it, it'll be fine. But generally speaking, if I'm bored, that's a problem. All right. Okay, Amy asks, questions on using a nom de plume or a pen name. I think it's necessary. I think there are some people who don't have a problem putting their personal name or their real name out there. Michael Laurent is not my real name. I use a pen name. And the reason for that is because I still work in a professional industry. And so when I'm applying for a job and things, I don't want people to immediately know, recruiters and such, to know that I'm a writer. And that I think it keeps things cleaner and allows me to control my personal brand from a working insurance perspective. Some people don't have that problem. Some people don't mind putting their personal info out there. But just remember that if you are writing under your real name, then people are going to be able to see your house. They're going to be able to see other stuff that you might own, other things that you've done on the internet. So there's always that. Whereas a pen name allows you to keep things cleaner and it gives you some more privacy. So I've got several pen names actually. Michael Laurent is one of them. ML Ron is what I use for my author books. And then I've got another pen name for poetry and another pen name for urban fantasy. So I think they're not bad. I would just be careful about having a bunch of them like I do, because it is a lot of maintenance. Okay. Wanjiru, got the link. Thanks. How does BookFunnel work? So assuming you're talking about the link that I use for the author planning book. BookFunnel works. Basically how it works is I'll basically send you a link. And in that link, I'll send you an email. In that email, there will be a link. What you do is you tap on that link or click on that link on the device that you want to read the book. So if you want to read the book on your phone, pull it up on your phone. If you want to read it on your desktop, pull it up on your desktop. And then click the link, and then it'll ask you what your device is. And then it will help you. There's a series of prompts that you have to follow. It's very easy. It will help you download the book onto your device. So it basically takes the pain out of figuring out how to do that. All right. So it's a great service. Damon Courtney over at BookFunnels, he's a great guy. I had the opportunity to sit down with him earlier last year, and I really like Damon and all the stuff that he's doing. So BookFunnel is a great service if any of you are not familiar with it, because it basically lets you send out a link to your readers and they can automatically download the book onto their device, and they don't email you with questions, which is awesome, because back in the bad old days, I used to have to email my books out to people, and then I used to have to walk them through how to get it onto your Kobo or how to get it onto your Nook, and it just eats up so much time, and BookFunnel takes all that away. All right. TechSet Jeb, Jonathan, do you have any research showing favorable release dates for books? Like if you wanted to research summer vacation season, for example. I've heard of some things in the past. I mean, I've heard some things on the traditional side, like, the best day to publish a book is on a Tuesday, that sort of thing. I don't necessarily know that it matters, honestly. I mean, if you're writing a book that's going to be, similar to some mega bestseller book, maybe you don't want to publish a book the same week as someone who's a heavy hitter in the genre. And you usually know that just everybody kind of knows when the big books in a genre are coming out. But I don't really think it's that big of a deal, because at the end of the day, okay, you publish your book on the same week or the same day that some other big name author publishes their book. if you do it right, your book is going to be available for your life plus 70 years. So who cares what the first week of the book is? Even, Amazon algorithms and all that aside, I don't think it's as important as people say it is. But I think you would know who the big names are in your field. If you can time it to where you're not publishing something during the same week, I think it could help, but it's not the end of the world. Okay, Luana. Sometimes in the middle of sorry, I saw that somehow that ended up on there twice. Wylan, do you have any tips on dealing with characters dying, being killed? Between all the books of yours I've read, you do a really good job at killing characters in a meaningful way. I feel bad. Oh, well, thank you. Sorry that you felt bad about the characters dying and all that. But I would say, the first thing I try to always avoid is senseless killing. Like, I don't like killing people just to kill people. Like, that's I think the first step. I think also when a character dies, I think it depends. It depends on how much time you've spent developing them, right? So if you're going to kill a character at the end of a book, then the readers have spent a lot of time with that character, and so therefore, I think you owe that character a little bit more of a send-off. Whereas if a character dies at the beginning of a book, the readers probably aren't going to care as much. They might feel bad for that person, but it's not really the end of the world. I think there's also some things you have to keep in mind if you're killing a villain, which readers probably expect, or if you're killing like a love interest, those sorts of things. And I think ultimately, no matter what you're doing, I think first things first, pick if your story has multiple viewpoints, I would pick the viewpoint from the character that has the most to lose. So if a character's going to die on screen and it's a love interest, then make sure that death happens in the viewpoint of a love interest, or they're the ones that find the body. That's kind of common sense stuff, but I think that helps. And then also using the five senses. So how is that person feeling upon this death scene? What are they seeing? What are they thinking? What are they hearing? What are they smelling? How does the body look? Does that trigger memories that they've had, that sort of thing? I mean, I think, if you can find a way to step into the way that you've had to grieve in your own personal life, thinking about how erratic and random and irrational grief can be, I think that you can help impart that to the reader. I mean, maybe your character does something that's completely irrational, it's kind of a thought. So yeah, killing characters is always a delicate thing, but sometimes it must be done. Must be done. All right. So let's see how everyone was doing here. Okay. Oh, first off, super chat. Hey, thank you so much, Nick. I appreciate that. Thank you for your work as a writer who has lacked discipline around writing since college. I love your power hour. Such a wholesome group activity. Hey, thank you so much. Appreciate it. All right. Up, down, junkie. 529 during the last 20 minutes. All right. Amy, 952. Very nice. Nicholas, I say you were late like a bum. No, not late at all, my friend. Glad you got something done. All right. Lois, 230. 709 with the talking machine. Talking machine. What do you mean by that? Are you talking about dictation? I've never heard of a talking machine. All right. Let's see. All right, Nicholas, 1,000 for the day today. TextVet Jeb, 615. Deborah, 368, with a total of 1274. Very, very nice. Okay, so we had some more questions come in here. Regenerate X. Should you copyright a book before or after you finish the first draft? Well, this is a bit of a misnomer question. So your book is copyrighted the moment you write it. I mean, the moment you affix words to the page, you have automatic copyright protection. What I think you're asking is, should you register your copyright after the first draft of the book or after you publish the book? And the answer is, I would register the copyright after you publish it. The reason for that, okay, maybe back up for a second. I'm talking about United States people here. All right, so I'm assuming you're in the United States for Generate X. The reason you register a copyright with the Copyright Office in the United States after you publish is because you're going to have to send them a copy of the book. All right, and it doesn't make any sense to send them a first draft of the book. There's some people who want to go the traditional publishing side. Maybe that makes sense for them, but I just think it makes sense to send it after the fact. That way, the sample you send them is the current sample that's for sale, and bada boom, bada bing, you're done. All right. But registering your work is not required unless you want to sue someone for copyright infringement. But if you do register your work in the United States, there are some incentives for doing that. Namely, you can get attorney's fees, and there's just some other things that are helpful with that might make it more lucrative for an attorney to take on a copyright infringement case. But as I say all the time, the majority of you probably don't have $100,000 laying around. That's what it costs before the pandemic on average to litigate a copyright infringement claim. Now it's probably like $200,000 with inflation and all that stuff. Okay. Fern asked for the Beast Mode collection. Will people who purchase in December still be entered into the contest? And the answer is yes. It is yes. There were just some folks who had asked me who said that they weren't aware that the book was out there, so I extended it for some other folks' benefit. But yes, if you entered the contest before, you're still in it, so no worries there. Okay. Pierre-Andre Roy, what is the difference between a fiction and fantasy novel? Well, I would say I'll answer this in two ways. Fantasy is a type of fiction, right? So that's the easiest answer to that. If you meant science fiction, I would say science fiction is about technology and the impact on the world through technology or through the envisionment of what technology can do to humanity. I'm oversimplifying this, just trying to answer it quickly. And then fantasy is about often the same thing, but on the magic side. So how does magic impact a society or impact people, and how do they use that to overcome the issues that they're overcoming? Again, I grossly oversimplified that. Oh, and Up Down Junkie, thank you so much for the super chat. Michael, you're the best. You're so generous with your time, and I'm getting so much out of these sessions. Thank you. Well, thank you, Up Down Junkie. I'm glad you got some words in today. All right. Let's see here. Wanjiru, my 2022 goals include sending newsletter to my contacts or readers. I write nonfiction, family memoirs, my community's history, and women's issues. What are your insights on material to send? Yeah, so what should you send in your email newsletter, essentially? I think you can never err on the bad side of advice. All right, so is there something that you think that people in your community should know? And when I say community, I mean your author or your reader community. So maybe it could be your local community too. But are there things that they should know? And is there something that they need to hear right now? And that's how I've always approached my email newsletters. I've been a little bit negligent in sending out email newsletters in 2021, but typically when I send it out, sometimes I'll send it out and say, hey, there's a book available. Here's where to get it. And that's perfectly okay. But a lot of times what I try to do is I try to lead into that with something that I think people need to hear. So for example, like my email, like my contact form, at some point last year, I got like 4 or 5 emails in the same week from people with the same questions. And the questions were coming from a place of self-doubt. All right. So it was, I don't know if I can do this. What do you recommend if I don't believe in myself? Those sorts of things. So in my email newsletter, I wrote, hey, here's how we address this problem, right? And I felt like it was something that people in my community needed to hear. And that was something that I was able to do. And that helped a lot with the open rates and with the click rates for, I don't know if I included a book at the end of that. I might have, I might not have, but I think it just helps. It helps if you're relevant, right? So that's where I would start. Is there something that they need to hear right now? And let that be your guide. All right. Amy, for music, big band. All right, big band is good stuff. And TextVet Jeb, I listen to rain and thunderstorm sounds. Tons of that on YouTube. Yes, there are. I was actually surprised at just how many videos are on YouTube on that. And trains, that's another thing I saw. People like the ambiance of trains, which I thought was, I mean, it's cool ambiance, but I'm surprised at how many videos there are on that. Okay. Let's see. Got a lot of questions coming in. Oh, okay. Thank you, Rose. I appreciate it. Okay. Let's see. Okay. Hunter asks, what is the next day of the Power Hour? Well, I'm so glad you asked that question because I need to figure that out myself. So let's take a look at the calendar here. So it's going to be the first Saturday in February, which is Saturday, February 5th. All right, so that's about 3 weeks from now. February 5th at 10 a.m. Central Standard Time. Countdown timer starts at 10 minutes till. All right. Okay, Anderson, random question after what you said about pen names. Can a pen name be just a word or like a username, or does it venture too far into the unprofessional zone? Yeah, I probably would not use a screen name as your pen name. I think that just makes you look like an angsty teenager. And no offense to teenagers listening to this, but I would not do that. I would use just a professional name. I would be careful about like a mononym, like, you know, like just use the name Kimberly. Like I don't think that works for authors. You know, maybe it works for musicians, but I wouldn't use a screen name, and I wouldn't use just a single word. It just makes it too difficult for people to find you, and it makes it too difficult for like people to wrap their heads, or like they shouldn't have to be thinking about, is this really this guy's pen name when they're buying your stuff? Okay, let's see. Oh, okay. Yeah, could you remind us of the title of the book that shows how to open and close chapters? It's called The Writing Craft Playbook, and it's 20 fiction and nonfiction tips to help your readers get in the zone. You can get it at authorlevelup.com/fan club. I'll put the link in the comments here. All right. Alrighty here. Let's see. Oh, okay. Emoto Meka says, I learned that lesson the hard way. We were talking about copyright. I wanted to make changes to a book I self-publish, but when I realized I'd have to create a new edition and get a new copyright if I did that. Yeah, that's that very good point. That's another reason you have to do that, because if you do create a new edition, you technically have to re-copyright it, which is not really that much fun. Okay, how do you know how to name your characters to best fit the story? Luana asks. I just know if a name works. I just kind of have a intuitive sense whether a name is appropriate or not, and I just have, it's kind of something that I just developed over the years. I try to pick names that are memorable but also easy to say for readers. Like I think what I try not to do is create names that are too difficult to say, because that always creates issues. But I like to go through Behind the Name. If you've ever been to that website, Behind the Name, it's either behindthename.com or behindthename.org, and it's a database of just nothing but names. And I always like to look at the meaning behind a name too. I think that's really, really interesting. The reader may not understand it, but subliminally, maybe it connects. So yeah, that's how I do it. And sometimes I'll spend a lot of time looking for the right name. Okay. Question, does your author bundle series exist in hardback as well? So my Beast Mode collection. No, it does not exist in hardback, and the only reason for that is because Amazon and Ingram Spark won't allow it. It's too many pages. I'm finding out that hardbacks are kind of difficult to create if you've got bigger ones. Yeah, once you get over a certain page limit, they just don't want to play. So yeah, I'm creating moving forward. So I bought a bunch of ISBNs over the holiday season. So I'm going to start publishing with Ingram Spark. But moving forward, where it makes sense, I will have hardcovers available. So that will be something that I'm doing. And where it also makes sense, I may start doing large print books too. I think it just depends on the audience. Okay, for music, Corey asked, what if it was like Beyonce or Cher that you listen to while you're writing? You know, I'm not against Beyonce or Cher, but it would have to be the right book for me to listen to their music. Although I did like Cher back in the day. Okay, Angie D asks, I want to make sure I catch your power hours. Are they always on a Saturday at this time? The answer is yes. It's usually the first Saturday of the month. And the next one, Angie, will be February 5th. And yes, they last about 2 hours. 2 hours. Yes, indeed. So, well, what a heck of a power hour, everybody. We got a lot of words in. We did a lot. And it's the first one of 2022. So as I said, I'll be back next month. And we'll be back at it. I do have some things planned in terms of the content. Nothing's going to change in the power hours, but visually, I had some ideas about something I can try to do next month that might be kind of cool based on some of your feedback. So, fingers crossed, it may not work, but we'll give it a try. All right. So have a wonderful week, everybody. Happy writing. Hope you get some more writing in today, and I'll talk to you next month.